Hello, everybody, and welcome into the Texas Longhorns postgame show. I am your host, Matthew Miller, as well as Gerald Goodrich. We just watched the Citrus Bowl. Texas gets the win 41-27 versus Michigan. 5.5-point spread, I believe, is what it closed at. Texas easily covers that. Honestly, a pretty close game other than the fourth quarter. Gerald, what did you see in this game that I'm going to say surprised you? That's how I'll phrase this first question. What surprised you about this football game?
I think what surprised me, one, I think Christian Clark was a good surprise in this game. You and I have talked ad nauseum about how much we think Texas needs to add bodies in the running back room, and that hasn't changed. But I think Christian Clark looked like he has the vision, I think, necessary to really thrive in this scheme, and that was something that we saw C.J. Baxter struggle with at times. And Quatravian Wisner was good at it, but also didn't have some of that explosiveness and some of the other things that we wanted out of it. So Christian Clark, finished the game with 105 yards, averaging 5.3 yards per carry. Like, he looked like a real running back. And even though Michigan was missing its two big outside defensive ends, the middle of that defense is still really stout. And so his ability to really see the lane, see the creases, and create positive momentum for Texas, that's a good sign. I think it also shows that Texas may, as much as I would love to have another elite running back, Texas may not need to have the number one guy in the portal. Texas may not need to have the top guy in the portal. They need somebody to complement him, because behind him, Michael Terry had one carry for no yards. So there needs to be another running back in the room that can carry water. But ultimately, Christian Clark was a big surprise for me. I think the performance of Ty Anthony Smith, specifically at the pass, was another huge surprise. He looked really, really good in the pass, multiple interceptions, and showed great instinct, great closing speed. He is a guy who can look. I saw folks invoking for the old heads. Gary Johnson is a guy who really feels like, with his explosion, with the speed that he has and the athleticism. So I think those are probably the two big surprises I saw in this game.
Yeah, for me, it's Warren Roberson. It's a guy that, when we talked about guys that were probably going to leave Texas, he was on my list, and I kind of wanted him gone. But he actually was probably the second best cornerback on the team today, behind Grayson Littleton. Thought he played better than Cade Phillips. I thought he played better than Kobe Black when Kobe Black was in there. Yeah, Cade Phillips did not play well today. Kobe Black didn't play well. And honestly probably helped us when he got hurt. Obviously, don't want him to be hurt. I hope he's okay. But I actually saw an increase in play when he got hurt and Warren Roberson came in, which would be kind of a shock to say if I told people that before the game, because Warren Roberson had been terrible up until this point. So he was my number one. I agree. I thought Christian Clark played really well today. I came into the season, I thought he was the most talented running back on the team coming into the season, but I didn't know, how they were going to use him this year. To me, I also noticed him being a little bit more explosive. I think you finally saw him get back to pretty close to what he was pre-Achilles injury.
Yep.
Obviously, that makes sense. We're basically almost a year out now of that injury. So hopefully he can, get back to whatever 100% is for him, because I never really got to see it in college, but that was definitely the closest we've seen it for him. Yeah, those were my two big ones. I would say Arch Manning, but for the national perspective that he is. But if you're a Texas fan, at this point he's kind of been backpacking this team. And let's be honest here, without his top two wide receivers in this game for the second half, that's exactly what he did. He put the team on his back and won the football game.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't call Arch Manning a surprise, right? That's not the world we're in. But seeing him look like the elite prince that was promised, to steal a metaphor, he looked the part of the guy who folks thought he was going to be coming into the year. I mean, he had Heisman hype, he had, national championship hype. And if Texas gets that level of performance from Arch Manning, or even anything close to that, I mean, Texas doesn't need 380 yards from Arch Manning every week to be successful. But if they can get something approximating that most weeks with the other contributors on offense, then Texas has a really high ceiling next year. And so it's hard to be surprised by Arch Manning, but I think the level of play and his ability to, we haven't seen a guy put a team on his back like this at Texas in a very long time. And I'm not going to invoke any of those names, because I think that's an unfair expectation to set for him. But ultimately, he looks like a guy that can carry a team to a national championship, or at the very least to be competitive for one.
Yeah, were there anything, especially the first half, because we had everyone that we're going to have next year on offense, was there anything that you liked that Sark did a little bit differently compared to the regular season?
I really didn't see it. I don't feel like I saw a ton different. I think they really did lean into what Christian Clark does well. Ultimately, I think that's going to be where Sark is going to make his money next year. Is really operating out of the pistol, operating out of shotgun. The things that we've said all year, really, like getting them in space, getting those running backs in those creases, because that's where Clark can really operate. And I think the dagger play you talked about the first half, but the second half, the dagger play, the long scramble, the long design run from Arch Manning looks a lot like what they did against Texas A&M to ice that game. So ultimately, like Sark getting past his natural desire to not run his quarterback, I think that has been something over the last several weeks of the season. But ultimately, seeing that come to fruition, Arch's legs were really a bigger threat than his arm at a lot of this game. So I think Sark leaning into that is going to be huge.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because we've talked about these things, and he's done it a little bit throughout the year. But he, like you said, he leaned into it this game with the quarterback run game. And I think that's kind of funny because that was my question going into this game. Are they going to play this, full bore, all out run Arch Manning? And they definitely ran Arch Manning, and he was willing to run and definitely took some brutal shots there at the end of the football game. And I agree. I think it's funny he finally leaned into that. I also thought we saw a little bit more up tempo, which we saw at times, but not enough in my opinion. And then we saw more screens and just get it out to the playmakers and let them play in space, which we had that. I mean, we did that at least 10 to 15 times in this game. That is not something we really did throughout the year. Like we did it 3-4 times a game. I don't know why it took so long to do it in a bowl game. Because if this is the style of offense we play the whole season with, I think there's a good chance we could be playing a college football playoff game right now instead of a bowl game versus Michigan. And I think it's very interesting that he started to lean in these things that clearly work. Like you and I have been calling for this, 8, 9, 10 weeks of, hey, up tempo, 11 personnel, get the ball out to the playmakers, let them create. And he leaned to it heavily in a bowl game. So I don't understand why it took so long, but I'm glad he did it.
I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth as long as Sark does not revert to the should haves or should be's that we saw early in the season. Because that was, I think, the big part of Steve Sarkisian's issue is that he wanted the offense to be something and something that it wasn't, and something that its personnel doesn't really match. And so if he doesn't revert back to those should be's, I really think this offense has an opportunity to thrive next year. They need to add some talent in the portal. We'll probably talk about that here in a bit, but ultimately, Arch Manning can operate the offense as it exists or as it existed today to I think an elite level next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting. Guys, we have to add someone in the portal. It doesn't even have to be Cam Coleman, but would it be awesome to just go all in and get someone like Cam Coleman? Absolutely. But you have to add at least a Eugene Wilson type wide receiver, someone in that league, that B player, because we saw what had to happen in the second half when Ryan Wingo went out. I think he could have went back in if it was a super meaningful game. You saw him walk on the sideline. It's let's not get him hurt. Then Emmett Mosley probably has a high ankle sprain is my guess. Hopefully it's not a broken ankle, which is really big. And you saw what happened. As soon as those two guys went out, it was literally, hey, Arch run right, Arch run left, Arch run up the middle, Arch scramble around, try to find someone. And even when we had those guys in, there were too many drops again. We had 5 drops in this game. We had a drop touchdown with Ryan Wingo. He was angry at himself. That was really, honestly, his only drop of the past 5 to 6 weeks. He's gotten much better at that. But Parker Livingston, my God, dude, you got to go out there and get on the jugs machine because he drops the ball way too often. And Dalen McCutcheon had the capes of the drops too. So we have to go out and get Arch Manning some help. I completely agree with you. Again, it doesn't have to be Cam Coleman, but it has to be someone, honestly, another Emmett Mosley, and I'd be fine with him. If you give me another Emmett Mosley this offseason, I'm cool.
The Texas needs a guy that uses his hands the way Emmett Mosley uses his hands. I have not seen a wide receiver that uses their hands that well. So it's maybe Colin Johnson, just the way, it is the almost anti Ryan Wingo, where Ryan Wingo seems to struggle and lets the ball get into his body or kind of loses the concentration. Emmett Mosley is a possession receiver with some speed to him. So I think that's the kind of guy, obviously this offense would explode if you have a guy like Cam Coleman in that room. But I also think there are so many other spots that Texas needs to allocate money to in the portal. Are you going to be able to pay the 7 figures you need to get a Cam Coleman for a year? Or can you allocate that to a lower tier wide receiver that has good hands that you can trust to catch a mesh route, that you can trust to connect with on mesh, and then also add a couple of offensive linemen or add another guy, Hollywood Smothers at the running back spot to complement what Christian Clark is doing. Like, there's a lot that Texas needs there. So again, I would love it. It's Texas, so the money's going to be there, but ultimately you have to be like, there are a lot of spots that Texas needs. We'll probably talk about the defense here in a minute, but like, there's some spots that Texas needs to shore up. And so dedicating $1 million plus to what Cam Coleman is asking for is quite a big ask when you have so many holes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, people don't realize, like, Trevor Gooseby is probably 50-50 still on the draft right now. I'd rather just use the extra money to convince him to stay around, because that's a really big piece that you have to keep on the offense, instead of going out and spending, probably $2.5 million on Cam Coleman. Go spend $1.5 million on someone, like I said, a B wide receiver like a Eugene Wilson. Honestly, Eugene Wilson would be a perfect fit. I've heard no connection so far, but I think that's like the ideal receiver I see in the transfer portal for Texas right now, but we'll have to see about that. Let's just jump over to the defense, because in the first half, a lot of holes, especially with them running the ball. They ran the ball pretty well. Bryce Underwood ran the ball pretty well in the second half. I thought the secondary, again, once Kobe Black went out and Warren Roberson came in, I can't believe I'm saying this, but actually settled down and played a lot better. Still, again, why are we playing off coverage on that one when it's 3rd and 18? You're playing 15 yards off and you give them 17 yards, and they're able to convert the 4th and 1. Do not understand that. But what are some holes or new holes that you saw exposed in this game that Texas needs to fill?
Yeah, I don't know if it's new holes, but I think it's the things that we saw. I mean, you think back to the Florida loss, the loss that really kept Texas out of the college football playoff. Texas didn't really have a number one cornerback to speak of behind Manny Muhammad. When Manny Muhammad is out, the defense looks like trash. And so ultimately, like, Texas, that is the big hole for me, is that third level. The cornerbacks, I think the safeties honestly will be fine. I went into the offseason thinking I wanted Texas to add another safety, and they still might. But ultimately, if you're going to add in the secondary, like those corners, I got into it with somebody because, like, watching Cade Phillips miss tackles on the two plays that led to a Michigan touchdown, right? He made the wrong read on the Bryce Underwood long scramble, ended up outside, and then made like a Pee-wee style like dive from his knees to try to make it look maybe better or worse. I'm not sure. Made first contact on the swing pass, got ran through, and gave up a touchdown. Like, those are the kinds of things that are going to get you beat in those kinds of games. And ultimately, it didn't cost Texas because I think Michigan just didn't have the horses to run with them at this point. But like the cornerback position, I think, needs an injection of multiple guys that can play. The rotation needs to be improved, or this team is going to get beat when they play anybody. Again, they've got Ohio State early next year, and Ohio State's still going to have a really good passing offense. So like, that is staring you in the face. So that's the big thing for me. I was pleasantly surprised by the safeties. I thought the safeties played really well. They were laying the lumber, did a really good job. And the linebackers, we saw multiple guys flash. Obviously, Ty Anthony Smith. Bo Barnes looks like an explosive kind of athlete. I'm very, very excited to see him be unleashed in Will Muschamp's defense next year. So like, there's a lot to be excited about. I think on the first two levels, the ends, the edges, we saw Zena flash. We saw Lance Jackson flash a couple of times. Like, the front of this defense is going to look really good next year. Again, it's a bowl game, and Michigan was missing one of its best offensive linemen, but ultimately, like, that unit looked good. The front six looked really good.
No, I agree. I was worried about the linebackers coming in this game, and I left it, and I'm way more concerned about the cornerbacks. And that's what's funny. You and I have both agreed we need to go out and get another corner, because I don't want to play the if game again. Again, we're not North Texas. We're not Baylor. We're not one of those schools where, yeah, you know what, this guy might be able to fill that spot if this happens. No, I don't. Listen, Cade Phillips, all the measurables are there. But when he's out there, I've seen him play one good football game, and that was Texas A&M. He's yet to play any other good football games. So why am I going to trust him going into next year? Again, like you just said, week 2 versus Ohio State. We really want Cade Phillips matched up one-on-one with Jeremiah Smith. We really want Cade Phillips matched up one-on-one with Mylan Graham. We really want Cade Phillips matched up one-on-one with even a freshman and Chris Henry Jr. Go watch that dude's tape. I don't like that matchup, even if him coming out of high school. So, yeah, I completely agree. And this is the funny thing. Like, I heard Inside Texas say they think we need a safety over corner. I completely disagree. I think if we bring Derek Williams back, I think I'm cool with the safety room. Just convince him to come back and not go in the portal. You're good at safety. You have him, Xavier Philsmith, Jonah Williams, and others back there that are able to play enough. Who's the cornerback that you can rely on? To me right now, the only consistent guy is Grayson Littleton. And he's not a big enough athlete to go out there and guard like a Jeremiah Smith one-on-one. He's not, no offense to him, on it out of 10 plays, he might be able to do it 1 or 2 times a game. But if you're counting on him to do it consistently, he's not going to win that matchup. Cade Phillips is the ideal body type. I completely agree with that when people say that. But right now, he's not the ideal player to do so. So I completely agree. Go out there and get another number 1 cornerback. You can find that in the portal. That they do exist. They do jump in there. Go and get one. And then guess what? You have Grayson Littleton as your other outside guy. And then if you want to rotate Cade Phillips in, fine. But he's just not the guy right now. And I'm not going into next season and what should be a national championship or bust type season, in my opinion. I've been saying that since the beginning of this year. I think next year is the year, and it has to be with the roster you're going to bring back. So you got to bring in a better cornerback, in my opinion.
No, I'm with you there 1,000%. If Texas goes into next year with the current package of corners they have, then Arch is going to have to win them 12 regular season games next year, because it's just going to be shootouts. Because the pass rush notwithstanding, I think that's going to continue to elevate under Will Muschamp. And part of the issue, I wonder if Cade Phillips, his struggle is because he's asked to play so soft, and he's not a soft cornerback. So I wonder in Muschamp's system, if getting him closer to line, if having him use that physicality at the line changes anything for him. I'm not ready to write him off yet, but in the current system and from what we've seen, Cade Phillips has not done the job. Now, again, if in this more kind of aggressive downhill scheme that we're expecting under Will Muschamp, if his size and his measurables, if that works better for him, then I'm. But again, we can't play the if game. You cannot send Arch Manning to his final year in Burnt Orange on the offensive side of the ball, playing the if game on defense. You just can't do it. It is the height of malpractice if you do that.
No, and that's the thing. I agree. I'm not ready to write him off either, because I think I see all the tools, but I'm not also ready to pencil him into the starting line. Be like, if you're just out there, you're a starting cornerback, because he hasn't earned that either. Like, I'm right in between on him, and I think you are too. And it's going to be interesting because, like I said, I trust Grayson Littleton. If you go out and get another portal corner, then you're fine, because then you can rotate at the other spot, whatever, if that's nickel or outside. That's fine. If you want to rotate a Warren Roberson and Cade Phillips and Kobe Black, I'm fine with doing that, but I'm not fine with just penciling those guys in. I think we're on the same page there. And then linebacker, they just need a guy that can go out and be the leader for 1 year. Go out and I forget the name, but the guy from Auburn. Go out and get the guy from Baylor. Those are kind of like the 2 guys I see right now that are in the portal currently that can come in and, be the leader on the defense, wear the green helmet or green dot on the back of the helmet. That's kind of what we need for next year. I don't need a Butkus Award winner. Again, at that position, I just need like a B guy that can, tell the younger freaks where to line up and where to go. That's what I'm looking for.
Especially because it's going to be probably a 3-backer system, right? When you look at what Will Muschamp does. So like having a guy who can be, like you said, the field general, the captain, the typical Mike linebacker who's calling the defense. I think that's a very, because again, this is no shot at Ty Anthony Smith or Bo Barnes, but like Bo Barnes is out there at 19 years old. Ty Anthony Smith is out there at 20 years old. They just maybe don't have that. So you need somebody who can be that field captain, that get those, because again, you're going to have guys like that. You're going to have Tyler Atkinson, who's going to play probably a ton at one of those positions, right? So like there's those types of things, a guy who can be the, hey, line up here, stand here. Hey, look out for this. Hey, I think you're absolutely spot on with what Texas needs there. You don't need the A+. You don't need to break the bank for the guy, but you need somebody who can come in and be a leader, be a stalwart, be the elder statesman, for lack of a better term, on that unit.
Yeah, because it's your most talented guys in that room are all young, like Tyler Atkinson, Kosiaka Paula, Bo Barnes, and then Ty Anthony Smith. You just can't have Ty Anthony Smith be the guy next year. You just can't.
Yeah.
In 2 years, I think you can, because I think he's still a little undersized. I don't see him going in the NFL next year. So I just think you just, like you said, go and get a leader. Dark Knight says Christian Clark looked way better than Weisner and Baxter. Why didn't he get more playing time during the regular season? I will say this. I've been saying, like I said, I think he's the most talented back on the team. But let's be honest with ourselves, too. He didn't look this good in the regular season. When he got carries, he was nowhere near this explosive. I really do think those 15 practices, that month and a half break that basically he had, really helped him get back to his explosive nature, because that's what he was out of high school. If you watch him, he's a pretty explosive guy, good out of the backfield catching the ball as well. So I just think the practices helped him get to the point where he's pretty close to 100%. Because I agree, like I said, I've been saying for a while, I think he's the most talented back on the team when Wisner and Baxter were here. He's definitely the most talented back right now. But it was just all health with him.
Yeah, and I think that's 100% what it is. Like, if you think about Achilles injuries and like running backs at Texas with Achilles injuries, right? That Achilles injury effectively ended Jonathan Gray's hopes of being an NFL running back. And so, like, now that we've got Christian Clark, we're just now basically 12 months removed from that injury. And so that, to me, is I think what it was. He did not look this good early in the year. And you know, frankly, like, it's hard not to play a guy like CJ Baxter, who has been the guy for you. And that's, you know, a fault of Steve Sarkisian. We've talked about it before. He maybe is too loyal to some of the older guys, but I really do think it was just like finally getting back to 100%, being able to, because especially with an Achilles and a guy who's as explosive as Clark, it's all about trust. It's all about, can I trust my tendons, my foot to be able to make that cut, to put it in the dirt and push off of it at full strength. And if you're not, then you're not going to look good. And so I think, like you mentioned, the extra reps and really having to be the guy, like, you kind of have to crap or get off the pot at this situation. So like, ultimately, like, this was his chance to show the coaches, like, I can be the dude and I can be a guy that you can depend on next year. So I think it's a combination of those factors for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting heading into this offseason. Like you said, if we don't get a big fish, he could be running back one, and then we could bring in like a good running back two. Like, that's definitely a possibility. Another thing, I'm done with, like, I'm not done with Michael Terry, the player. Dude's, I think, going to be a good football player. But I'm done with people talking about he's going to pop off this week, he's going to do this. I'm done with that. I've heard it the past month of games of, hey, yeah, he's really taking a big step. I'm so done with that, because you're putting unneeded expectations on a dude when he doesn't even, like, I haven't heard Mike Terry, yeah, I'm going off today. No, he's not saying that. The coaches are like, yeah, where he's doing really well, he's going to go off. He's looking really good in practice. Like, can we stop with that?
Yeah, I'm still not in love with the fit for him at running back, like pure running back. I think he's probably more of a gadget guy, more of a more talented Keelan Robinson, a more versatile Keelan Robinson. But I mean, you saw his one carry, he kind of just ran into the back of the offensive line. He's young, he's going to grow into it. It just feels like a weird fit for him at running back. Ultimately, I don't think you can go into the season with him as RB2.
No, I don't think so either. I didn't even like, coming out of high school, I thought he was more of a tight end or fullback / H-back or whatever you want to call it. Like, that's how he should be used. Honestly, how we use Nick Townsend is how we should use Michael Terry. I don't know if we're going to do that. I don't know what's going to happen there, but that's kind of what I saw from him in high school. He doesn't have enough fluidity in his hips to me to be a running back. He's a little stiff in the lower body.
And you know, I say all this, like, with the grain of salt of, like, Michael Terry is going to have a longer development curve because he basically did everything on his high school team. He didn't get to specialize in anything. So he's still learning a freaking position. So that's part of the conversation as well, right? We have to, like, take all of that with a grain of salt of, like, he had to do everything. I think he punted a few times in high school. Like, that's how much they depended on him. So, like, ultimately, we've got to be a little patient with him. But yeah, I don't love the fit at running back. I didn't love it when they first said it, but here we are.
Do you expect any other staff changes to be made before we kick off next season?
Chris Jackson is the one that I'm still watching, because he's still living with a 1-year contract, right? Like, he still hasn't gotten his contract.
And his wide receivers drop everything.
Yeah, well, you can't recruit with that unless you sign. Either you get a new guy in or you sign him long term. Like, you can't recruit with a expiring contract. It's not a thing, right? And the wide receivers, frankly, have sucked in a lot of ways. A ton of drops. Livingston's drops, Wingo's drops. The only guy that didn't really have a case of the dropsies all year was Emmett Mosley, and we saw him late. So I think that's probably one that I would be. I don't know if Jeff Banks will get the boot, but I would be okay if he did. The special teams units continue to look like trash. Like, that guy is too well paid as a multi-position coach to really be adding that value, because the tight ends aren't that great. The special teams isn't that great. And the playing field has been leveled for recruiting. So like all of the value, he's not really bringing a ton of value there as it exists right now. So like that's the other one that I would be curious to see how it gets changed. Secondary coaches, I think all of those guys are probably also on the chopping block, but that's part of bringing in a new defensive coordinators that you'll probably see a lot of turnover there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I agree with Jeff Banks is weird because whenever like I thought the tight ends had a really good game today compared like to like our standard of this year. Nick Townsend I thought played well. Jack Hendry's caught a touchdown. We finally got him involved a little bit more. Just right when he's going to leave most likely too. So that's always fun. But yeah, it's always weird because the special teams plays bad. The same time their tight ends, I feel like play good. Like they're never good at the same time. It feels like he spends, oh, we were bad last week at this. So I'm going to spend more time with the tight ends and the special teams. And then you see it in the game. That's how it feels to me. And I think too, like just go get a coach for each one. Like you're the University of Texas, pay 2 guys $1 million each and say, here, you're the tight end coach, you're the special teams coach. Why are you doing both? I do not understand.
You have 2 quarterback coaches plus Steve Sarkisian. Why do you have Jeff Banks coaching both? Why?
Yeah, I don't know why. And that's the thing too, like there are 2 guys on the staff. I just think Sark is going down with the ship with, and I think that's Jeff Banks today, Jay Milwee. I think those guys have a job here as long as he has a job here.
Yeah, and that is. I was talking to a friend of mine, and like Banks is going to be here as long as he wants to be. Milwee is Sark's guy, but I'm going to point this out there. If you look at the field, the post game, Arch was not with he was with Michael Belmonte, the other quarterback coach. So like that's just something to keep an eye on. I'm just saying, maybe it's confirmation bias, maybe it's wishful thinking. But like what Milwee does is the personnel, is the relationship. And it's like slot him over personnel, like have him work with your personnel staff. You've got a really great personnel staff. Add another guy to it. Like that is, you can keep him around, but he's not. It's again, I'm moving on from that. I can talk about that all day.
Flood is the other one that's been floated out there. I think Kyle Flood should get another year. I thought the offensive line got better progressively throughout the year. I honestly think they played decent today. I mean, the running holes were probably the best we've had all year, honestly. And it's going to be interesting if they're able to keep Connor Robertson. I think that's actually a big thing because I thought Connor Robertson, once he moved to center, was the full-time center, did a pretty good job. So if you can have him and the 2 tackles and then just have to fill the guards, I'm cool with that. And it's been said, he's kind of 50-50. He might just like retire and not play football, basically, is what I've heard. So that's going to be interesting if they can convince him to play one more year. I don't know if that's the case. Otherwise, you're going to have to replace the whole interior. And listen, if it's this bad again next year at the beginning of the season, I completely agree. Kyle Flood should go, but I'm cool with giving him another year.
Yeah, I have not. And part of the alignment issues were injuries and some nagging stuff and things being weird. So I think when they got the right concoction of dudes in there, the offensive line looked good, not great today. Michigan has one of the better interior defensive lines in the country. So like that is part of the matchup, right? We knew Texas was an okay interior going against a good Michigan interior. So like Michigan was going to win some of those battles, but ultimately I thought they looked okay. They made creases. They created creases for Christian Clark to be able to slip through. I still feel like it looks painful for most of those guys when they have to run on a screen pass. Like I would love for them to improve and find guys that can move their freaking feet on screen passes, because that was part of the struggle on a few of those spots. Is like, Jack Hendry's is having to wait for them to get out there to grab a screen pass, and then it goes over his head. So there's still work to be done there, but ultimately the unit wasn't as bad as we've seen. Like we've seen it way worse this year.
No, 100%. And so I guess my next question is, do you see any other guys transferring if we bring in like certain position groups, I should say? And I guess I'll answer my own question first. I think Jamie French is gone if we bring in a big time wide receiver.
I French, and I also like McCutcheon probably didn't do himself any favors tonight. He may be shown the door after, like, if Texas brings in a big time guy and they're looking to cut a couple, I think McCutcheon had a really, really bad game. Like it was awful. So like he's probably a guy who would be asked to find a new place to live. That's one that I would be looking out at for sure. I don't really feel like there's a ton of other attrition that's going to happen. I don't think the secondary is going to have. You may see another corner hop in depending on how Texas prioritizes that position. But ultimately, I really don't feel like there's most of the guys that are in already are going to be are the limit of what I think Texas is going to see.
Yeah, and it told me a lot today when those injuries happened and you still never really saw Jamie French. Like that kind of
Yeah.
tells me if you go and get a big time wide receiver, I just don't see it. Kind of reminds me he's not like this guy. Like I haven't heard anything off the field bad about him, like a Jonte Cook. But it kind of reminds you of that whole situation of he was built up to be this guy, and then he didn't play at all really his freshman year, and then even his sophomore year, Jonte Cook barely played. So if we that could be the Jamie French story. That's how I see it. And, we finally got to see Khalid Lock, and he made that's what he does. He's a 50-50, and I shouldn't say 50-50. He's an 80-20 one-on-one guy when you throw it up to him. So we're going to see that a lot next year. I have a feeling about that because that guy's a freak. I loved him out of high school. I think he's the best wide receiver. I'm going to stick to it. I think he's the best wide receiver out of that class in high school. I think he's better than Corian Moore. I know people are thinking I'm crazy, but when he gets a shot, I think he's going to turn into a touchdown machine. I really do.
I think that's fair.
Let's see. The kickoff. Who was kicking off today? Like, what the hell was that?
It was it wasn't Will Stone. It was
no.
It was Shipley, I think, was doing the kickoffs.
No, there was a left-footed guy, I believe, doing it. He was like number 46, I believe. I've never even heard Barrett, something like that. I thought that's what the back of the jersey said.
Now I gotta look it up.
It was bad though, and even Arch.
Oh, it's terrible.
When they caught him on the sideline saying, "What the fuck is the special teams?"
Yeah, and that it's that again, not only do you have that, but you got the massive returns that are happening, and there was another special teams penalty tonight. Like per capita, I feel like that's the most penalized unit. Like if you look at the number of plays, that they're on the field for, special teams is way too penalized. 41, you said. Who's 41?
Something like that. It was in the 40s. It was bad, man. 40. Like
it was terrible.
And it was funny to hear Arch say that or see him say that on the sideline. Shipley, I believe they did replace him at the end of the game. They put in Mason Shipley to do the kickoffs because it was that bad. But you were giving Michigan at 3 points, 3 in a row. They were getting the ball to the 40-plus yard line. One of them went past midfield. And Michigan special teams isn't good, guys. That's why they fired their special teams coach and got Kerry Coombs because they're that bad on special teams. But, we made him look good with the kickoffs, and it was just annoying. At that point, just kick it out of bounds, and they get the ball at the 35.
It might have well be on. Yeah. So Spencer Barnett, 46 was the number. 46, Spencer Barnett out of Austin Westlake, redshirt freshman.
Okay, yeah, I didn't even know who the guy was, and I'm just like, even Archton, he's like, who the F is kicking off on special teams? I thought that was hilarious because I felt the same way. We're gonna miss Will Stone if we don't get someone like that because Will Stone, you didn't have to worry about it. It was out of the back of the end zone almost every time we're in the end zone. He's got a really strong leg, which again begs the question is why didn't we try him as a field goal kicker? He never really got his opportunity with that. But Mason Shipley was good, so I'm fine with that.
Yeah, Shipley was fine, but again. Those long those kicks out of the back of the end zone, I need them. It really disguised a lot of the deficiencies on that unit. That unit was terrible.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too. Next year we're gonna have to have a new kicker and punter again. I think Bomeister's out of eligibility, so and it's freshmen, and you cannot rely on freshmen guys. So you're gonna have to go in the portal and get a 1-year guy for each of those positions, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I hate it. It's terrible.
Do you have any other main takeaways from this game or the Texas season as a whole?
I think this was a good cap to it. And I think it's a good springboard, especially for Arch, who we know needs that confidence and needs that swagger when things get going, going out with almost 400 yards of offense, 376 yards of offense. Yeah. 221 in the air, 155 on the ground. That's the kind of game he needed to cap off this season. And coming in next year, the Heisman hype has already started, and I need people to just sit on that. There's a lot of other things that are going to happen between then and now, but ultimately, this was a good cap to a season that, frankly, there were some disappointing moments, but Texas, 10 wins, 10-3. Arch Manning is one of 4 Texas freshmen, first-time starters at 10 wins, right? And the other names were legendary. Vince Young, and Chris Sims are the other two, or two of the other three. So like the names he's putting himself up against are huge. So I really love where the season ended for Arch. I think the offense has some work to do in the portal. I think they'll be better next year if they hit those right things. I think you're spot on that next year has to be, it's hard to say national championship or bust just because of the variability of a 12-team playoff, but like they need to be deep and make a deep run next year or it will be a massive disappointment.
I think they should get to the national championship game. I think it's going to be a big portal window just by the way Sark talks. He's kind of if you see the last two press conferences, he's kind of gotten pretty fiery with reporters and fiery with what he said. So I think he knows like this is the all-in time as it should be, because I think I agree with you. I think this is kind of the springboard. I think this is kind of, it's not going to be this, but it's similar to Vince Young, saying we'll be back at the end of the Rose Bowl versus Michigan. I think this is Texas springboard in that next year. I think Arch Manning I've said this, I think he's going to win the Heisman next year. I think he's going to have a generational type season next year. I think that's the type of player he can be and is going into next year. But you also have to get some help around him. Again, guys, you can't have I don't care if your wide receivers are getting hurt. At no point should Parker Livingston be the number one wide receiver at the University of Texas. He just can't be. If you look at real national championship programs, they don't have that guy. Even if their top guys get hurt as the number one wide receiver, they don't. Look at Ohio State. If Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate get hurt and they have points this year, you replace them again with another like insane 5-star wide receiver. So that's the type of wide receivers they should have for next year for Arch Manning. And like I said, I'm fine if they want to go all in on Cam Coleman. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But I agree. You can't use the excuse, well, we used all the money on Cam Coleman and then this happened. Like there should be no excuse. I don't care what they say about money, boosters, whatever, have to be all in. You got to get 3 or 4 interior offensive linemen, probably 3 interior, 1 swing. You got to go get 1 corner and 1 safety or 2 corners, no safeties. I'm fine with that. 2 linebackers, probably an edge too if you just want to throw in a decent edge that can also rotate in there as well. And then go get a wide receiver or 2 and a running back. And I think we're good. I think this team can win a national championship, but you got to be busy this offseason.
It's going to be a very, very busy offseason for the personnel staff, and the Lamborghini of East Austin needs to get the checkbook out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the school's paying, so hey, you got to match us now with the NIL coming out of the Lambo's dealership. Terry Blacks, hey, send us a milli. You got the money. You're charging a lot for those plates, man. Send some money to Austin. So one thing I will say too, I really hope Justice Terry was actually hurt, because I think that guy is going to have a monster season next year. I really hope it's not some NIL shenanigans happening behind the scenes, because that would suck. Because that guy popped off the screen the last 2 to 3 weeks.
He's going to be a monster.
I think he's going to be insane next year. I think he's going to be the second best player on defense. I really believe that. I think it's going to be Colin Simmons and him. Like he was unblockable when they put him in versus Georgia. He made 3 tackles for loss in a row at the end of that game. I know it was meaningless, but when you're going 3 for 3 at the end of a football game versus the Georgia offensive line as a freshman, I think you're a pretty good football player. Yeah,
it's a big deal for sure.
Again, guys, please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. We really appreciate it. Again, give Gerald a follow right there on his X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, as well as his Blue Sky, as well as his Longhorn Pod, which you can follow, listen to on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, same as the Texas Longhorns Voice of College Football thing. You can find it on there as well. Please do that. Also, give me a follow right there on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. I really appreciate that. Texas beats Michigan. They are 3-0 versus Michigan all time. 41-27. We own Michigan. Never lost. Never going to. Hopefully, we play them again in 2 years, and then not for a while probably. So let's go 4-0 when we play them next time. But as always, guys, we really appreciate you guys being here. Hit the like button, subscribe, and as always, hook 'em.
Hook 'em.